on the YouTube channel of Middlesex County. Before we begin, we will give a brief land acknowledgement. We begin this gathering by acknowledging that the land upon which we meet is the traditional territory of First Nations people who have a long-standing relationship with the land, water, and the region of Southwest Middlesex. We convey our respect to our Indigenous neighbors and thank them for their contributions to our culture, our community, our past, and partnerships in the future. Council, I'll ask for a disclosure of pecuniary interest. Is there any member of council declaring a pecuniary interest in the general nature thereof? Seeing none, we'll move on to number 3. The agenda has been circulated and updated. The regular agenda of council dated January 11th be accepted as presented. May I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor McCollum, Councillor Haggett. Questions? All in favor? Carried. Delegations and presentations. Stephanie, we're very pleased to have you tonight, and I think you're keeping good company tonight with the guy beside you here, Dirk. It's a surprise to see you, and we're just delighted. So let me hand the floor over to you folks, and we will all welcome you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. Appreciate the invitation out tonight. So I think most of you I've met, but there's a couple I maybe haven't yet met. Dirk Vanderwerf with the County Planning Department. Of course, Stephanie is with the Planning Department also and is your planner. So I guess we were just invited out to just a little bit of a reminder of what planning is, sort of at a high level, Stephanie's role with you. We put together some quick slides and we'll go over them briefly, but it's really if you have any questions or anything you want to talk about while we're here, I appreciate that. So I'm going to start and then we're going to a little bit of an introduction and then Planning Department, talk about the planning framework, and then at the end, some emerging issues. And there's a lot of change going on right now, conservation authorities, planning act change, etc., with the provincial government. So there's going to be some things before you this term of council. So we just want to sort of mention those now, and then we'll be back before you in the future.
So just at a high level, the role of land use planning. Land use planning decisions determine where and how growth occurs within the communities, and also takes into consideration the protection of our resources. And good planning leads to better places to live, generally avoids or tries to mitigate land use conflicts, and also supports economic development as well.
So the planning department at the county, the first two are really what we're here about tonight. County planning, local planning. The department also does some mapping in GIS and in woodlands and weeds. And of course, Southwest Middlesex, you're blessed with most of the county forest is in Skunks, Missouri and Southwest. So we spend more time here than elsewhere in the county. But really county planning, it's the role of county council. And that's a delegated role that the province under the legislation and historically, the province is actually the approval authority for planning in Ontario. They've delegated certain aspects of that to county council and then staff, and we work so for plans of subdivision, condominium, and then of course your official plan. And then the local planning is the day-to-day matters that you know, probably the more important things to citizens that come before this, whether it's land division and minor variances, zoning, etc. And we have there's an agreement between each of the 8 local municipalities and the county that sort of defines how planning operates. So for instance, Stephanie has, I think it's 1 day a week that she's on site here. She's available 5 days a week, phone, email, and whatnot for special meetings. It's funded through the county levy, so there's not a fee for the local municipality per se, and then planning application fees are retained for all local applications, whereas Middlesex county applications are at the county level. Next slide, please. And then really the role of the planner, you know, Stephanie will attend your meetings as needed, also provide evidence and opinions at the Ontario Land Tribunal, as we call it now, which is the appeal body for planning decisions. Stephanie has a professional code of conduct and ethics to follow, as all of your staff would. But really the day-to-day work is, you know, Stephanie will whether it's phone calls or meet in person with applicants and with people as they have issues that they're trying to resolve. And ultimately, probably her most important role is to provide advice to you on individual applications. And then there is that backup too. So of course, I'm available if needed, but we've got, I don't know if you've had a chance to see Tim Williams yet at your council, but he's a senior planner and has a great background. Came to us, worked for a law firm actually in Toronto doing planning work. He's from the area, so wanted to come back to Southwestern Ontario. So he brings a keen eye on, so when we're trying to deal with litigation, those sort of things, his experience is great on that. So, and then we have a number of other planners that work in different areas. And of course, often common issues come up, whether, the same kind of application can be in Middlesex Center or North Middlesex or Southwest. So just as that team, a way to bounce ideas back and forth, of course.
So on the screen before you is what's considered to be the planning framework. So on the left-hand side, or the beginning stages of the arrow, there is a policy hierarchy starting with the Planning Act, which contains provincial legislation that municipalities must adhere to, the provincial policy statement, which all planning applications must be consistent with. The province also has guidelines available to help further interpret the policies within the provincial policy statement. So the most commonly used ones, I would say, for Southwest Middlesex, being predominantly rural, is the minimum distance separation guidelines and the permitted agricultural uses guidelines. The county official plan is a high-level planning document that provides goals and objectives, amongst other policy direction for the county as a whole. And the county official plan did actually go through an update, which Dirk will speak to later on in the emerging items section. The local official plan contains council's vision for the long term for the municipality. And the Southwest Middlesex official plan also went through an update in 2022, which I will speak to shortly. The zoning bylaw is a more detailed document, which includes things like permitted uses, so what people can and cannot do on a property, how large buildings and structures can be built, where they can be located. It speaks to parking, landscaping, etc. And generally, if a land use proposal does not meet the policies that were just discussed, it does result in the need for a planning application. And the type of application varies depending on the proposal. And generally at the end of the arrow, so once all planning approvals are in place, the property owners are in a position to obtain building permits. And although the building permits is the end of what marks, the end of the planning side of things, oftentimes it is through the building department that the need for a planning application comes up. So a most common example would be someone submits a building permit for a house, and the building department will review the zoning standards and might identify that the house is located too close to the lot line. So then certainly planning's involved at that point in time, and then it kind of circles back to the beginning of the arrow at that point in time.
There you go. We didn't rehearse this. I'll just jump in quickly. A couple of things that I think that are important to point out on this. And first of all, Ontario has one of the most prescriptive planning frameworks in Canada. Your staff and Stephanie, might get complaints sometimes from a citizen about 21 days and paperwork has to be done and certain things have to be signed in a certain way. It is exceedingly prescriptive. And the government has done that on purpose. And so municipalities must follow those things. And if you don't do that, then it's open to challenge, of course. And then it's also important, I think, for us to remember that in the end, it is the province, our constitution are responsible for land use planning. So they do set the rules, the policies at the highest level. And particularly this government right now is really changing a lot of things. So, and maybe an example, we'll get into additional residential units. They just made a decision that, thank you, They just made a decision that in fully serviced areas, you no longer need planning approvals for additional residential units. The province can do that. Doesn't matter what, frankly, what a council wishes on that kind of matter, they can supersede. So sometimes citizens, that's unusual that your local council doesn't have a final say in some of these things. So.
All right, so on the screen before you is some data on Southwest Middlesex planning applications. It's organized by application type, the quantities on there, and it's for the years 2016 to 2021. And on average, Southwest Middlesex has processed about 29 or 30 planning applications per year on average. And that's a trend that we are anticipating to continue for the year 2023. And on the right-hand side, we have the data for the plans of subdivision within Southwest Middlesex. And the more recent growth, I would say, has been seen in the settlement area of Glencoe. So I will also note that we are working on the annual reports for 2022. So that will be a document available for council in the near future. Anything else on this slide?
No, we're working on it. The next few weeks, we'll get the numbers out to you, of course. So emerging issues. I wanted to start with Middlesex 2046 official plan update, and Mayor Mayhew was very involved in this both at County Council, and the mayor sat on our planning advisory committee. And so over the last couple of years, really, the county and council looked at all sort of a complete update of the county's official plan. Highlighted on there a few of the items, of course, agriculture, things like drinking source water protection and the changing provincial framework on that. We did a natural heritage update. We did new population and housing projections to 2046. And it was all sort of predicated on this, the fact that over the last 5 years, and we think going forward, it's likely that growth will occur at a higher rate than we've historically had. And we've seen that, of course, in Southwest Middlesex and Glencoe in particular. So, so that project was wrapped up just before the election with the previous county council. It's been adopted. The material's been submitted to the province, and then we sort of just by happenstance are caught in the provincial changes that are going on right now in land use planning. So we haven't had the official plan approved, and we're not really sure when that's going to happen or how that's going to happen. But we've been told the next few months that we'll get more information from them. So we're sort of in this little bit of a holding pattern. We had completely updated the document, we believe, to reflect all of the change direction from the province and then local issues. And now we're just waiting for their approval on that.
So these, as mentioned, the Southwest Middlesex official plan began its review in January of 2022. The municipality and the county obtained Monteith Brown planning consultants to assist with that review process. There was public consultation in the spring and throughout the summer. All the information and the proposed changes are available on the Southwest Middlesex website. The changes were adopted by council in the fall of 2022, and it is pending county council approval.
I think this is back to me. We're almost done here. I think one of our just general emerging issues is it has been very busy the last number of years. Now, I will say that building permits right across the county and applications have dipped a little bit right towards the end of last year. So we'll see what happens this year. But overall, we're just about double our historic numbers. And you just have to drive around the county to sort of see that. So that's a challenge. It's a challenge for the planners to kind of keep up with that. But it's also a challenge for your staff, your building officials, and everyone else. Like there's a lot going on in the county. My apologies. Just the talking about this gets me all choked up, Mr. Mayor. So the other thing that we have going on, and there's a report coming to council. The agenda was just posted today to county council. And that is just we hired a consultant through some provincial funding to undertake an attainable housing report. We all know this, you know, that the basic economics of housing has changed right across the county. You know, affordability wasn't, you know, traditionally not that long ago, it wasn't really an issue in Middlesex County. Certainly Middlesex Center and Center around the city of London, prices were much higher. But as you got further out, you know, there were affordable options. That's all changed. And I don't need to tell you that. So the province did support the county to look at this. So the consultant will be, I think the agenda got posted today, Mr. Mayor. And they're going to be at County Council Tuesday. So there is some public input opportunities and whatnot for that. So I'd encourage you, and Stephanie can send out a link if you'd like to know more about that. And then the other thing that's going on right now is the More Homes Built Faster Act and all the related changes. So essentially, you know, the provincial government over the last few years has made a number of small changes to how planning is occurring in Ontario. And then late last year, they decided to make some significant changes. So is intended to support the Ontario's Housing Supply Action Plan. And it's making significant changes, especially to the Conservation Authorities Act. Conservation authorities, as of January 1st, are essentially out of the natural heritage and planning application review, other than in regulated areas and in certain areas. So that's a significant change. They're making changes to development charges. Frankly, cutting back what municipalities can collect through development charges, and there's many reports in your development charges consultant, development charge consultant can assist with that. And then they're making changes to the Planning Act. There's certain things that must be delegated to staff, and so that was already started. So, for instance, site plan control used to come to your council. The province has mandated that now it must go to an individual, a member of staff, rather than you. And then just things like a plan of subdivision. They're now there's traditionally, we've always had a public meeting for a plan of subdivision. That was a requirement. They've removed that requirement. They've removed certain appeal rights. Not all applications, but many applications can no longer be appealed by citizens. And so we're just working through all those changes. There needs to be updates to what the notices that go out, communication of what's on our website so that the public can understand this. But it is a lot of change. All indications are that's not done. They're going to continue to make additional changes. They've identified that housing is a significant priority, and so they're making their efforts in ways that they see are appropriate. But it really is sort of shifting the balance, I would say, from councils and sort of even things like having multiple meetings. Sometimes for larger files, and I think you've done that in Southwest a couple of times. You might have 2 public meetings because there's a big issue, and you have a meeting, and then maybe they do a second. They change the plan a bit, and you have another meeting. The government is really discouraging those sort of things. They want things to happen faster than municipalities have done in the past. So there's much more on this to come. And I think we're going to have an official plan amendment coming up shortly to address parts of it, but you're going to have other decisions to make in the coming months.
So in terms of resources, the county has created planning process guides that are available on the website. We found this is a great tool for the public to use, and it at a high level goes over each application types. There also is AMO land use planning for elected official courses. And as Dirk already mentioned, certainly myself, Tim, our senior planner, or Dirk are available to answer any questions you may have.
I would only add, and of course, I have not taken the AMO land use planning course, but I've talked to several people that have. They say it's quite good. There's sort of 2 modules. There's the sort of intro one, and then you can come back. I think they're maybe even online now, but we can provide that resource through you if you'd like. But I've heard that they're quite good for elected officials. And if there's a bit of sort of discussions, you get to hear from other elected officials in different places and how they're dealing with planning and whatnot. So we've certainly heard that it's quite good. So with that, I think that's all we were going to say, but I certainly would be happy to answer any questions or whatever you would like, sir.
Thank you, Dirk, and thank you, Stephanie. Council, that was a good presentation and realizing the challenges that this department has in front of them. These changes necessitate a lot of pivoting at times. And as Dirk mentioned, I even received correspondence today from the province regarding land use planning and changes. So it never comes. Are there any questions you'd like to pose to our presenters? Dirk, I'll start it off. Very often it warms things up, but you know, it is almost unprecedented, the changes that are occurring right now. On a national level, is Ontario a standalone on these changes, or are other provinces in Canada doing the same or emulating Ontario? BC, for instance.
Yeah, that's a tough question to answer. Certainly, the housing issue is right across the country. I think we know that, and right across North America and parts of Western Europe and whatnot. So various, as I understand it, these governments are taking various actions, whether even federally with regards to non-Canadian residents purchasing, some of those kind of rule changes that are happening, and finance changes. In terms of the actual planning changes, I believe that Ontario is doing more. But as I would go back to what I said earlier, we're also very prescriptive. So in some sense, they can do more, and maybe there's more of a problem here too, one might argue. But I don't know that much about what's going on in BC, for instance.
And these are not motivated by, they're not GTA centric, are they? Or maybe that's something that you may feel uncomfortable.
Yeah, that would be a matter of opinion. But certainly a lot of the changes, I would say, it's quite clear, are focused on larger municipalities, larger urban centers. For instance, a lot of the development charges work. I think, pretty commonly when you read online from various consultants and the law firms publish sort of guides to these changes, they really are geared to those largest urban areas where development charges are, I think Milton, I read it was $120,000 a lot or something like that. They are a bigger number than here, very different scale, of course.
Okay. Yes, go ahead, Councillor McGill.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Mayhew. I think one of the changes the province has brought in is making it so you can have an extra unit in your house. So a single family house could have a separate unit, or even, what do they call that? When you build another, that granny flat, is that the right name for it?
Yes, so there is, as of right, without the need for a planning application, from my understanding, you can have up to 3 units. So one within, or 2 within the house.
This is a good example of the province changing things rapidly. A year and a half ago, they decided that additional residential units is what they call it.
Okay.
And it was 2+1, 2 in a dwelling, 1 in a rear laneway or in the backyard. The most recent changes in October changed it to 2+1 or 3+0. So now you can have 3 units in your house. And then they also changed that it's only on areas of full municipal services. So, and this is something that has not been well communicated in the news. Citizens see, oh, now I can have 2 more apartments in my house, but it's only as of right where there are full sewer and water. What's not clear is whether municipalities are allowed to do this also in rural areas or hamlets that don't have full services or not. The province hasn't communicated well on that yet. So as of right now, without planning approvals, only through a building permit, you can have either fully serviced areas, you can either have 2 units in your house and 1 in an accessory building, or you can have 3 units in your house. And then they also put in, and Stephanie can come back with some more details on this, it would be helpful for council. They also put in things, for instance, you're not allowed to specify a minimum lot unit size. Municipalities would say in the past, maybe that if they didn't want to discourage this sort of unit, they would say it had to be a certain size, which made it not practical. So the province has said you can't do that. You can't restrict parking. You can't restrict tandem parking where you have to move your car to let somebody else out. So they're very, very prescriptive on this.
So let me just give an example. It's something that happened in this municipality last year. I think somebody on a street, I think it was John Street in Glencoe, where it had been zoned for residential, but single family residential. They wanted to put in duplexes, and then that had to come before council, I think, for approval. Would that maybe not have to come before council anymore? That would just be allowed, or I'm not sure.
That is another good question, but certainly something I think we have to review is the difference between what is defined as an additional residential unit versus what you're speaking to is, I think that specific example was a 2-unit dwelling, which essentially based on it it could be one and the same almost. Perhaps,
Yeah.
but something we're still gonna look into, I think.
I think Councillor McGill's question transfers into the subject of affordable housing and multiple family units. What about height? I see very often that the taller a building goes, the more units, the more habitable units are contained. So does that have a reference to these changes and the crystal ball ahead? Dirk, is height going to be a restriction? As you know, many municipalities have a height restriction within their municipalities, and some are for architectural considerations, and others are for visual considerations. And but height, developers find that once they make the initial investment in land and services, that going up would be very cost effective. Is there consideration on that?
Through you, the mayor, to council. The most recent Bill 23 changes, to my knowledge, don't make any changes to municipal zoning in terms of height and whatnot. We absolutely are seeing that, and look at some of the proposals we're having in, Lucan's got a couple of buildings under construction right now where, traditionally other than the green elevator, there was nothing over probably 2.5 stories in Lucan, where now you're getting 4, and I think one might even be 6. Middlesex Center, there are a few, of course, Strathroy's had taller buildings. But yeah, absolutely the economics, as I understand, and I'm told by developers, for these sort of prefab building components that they can sort of truck in and put together. The one in Lucan, actually, if you happen to be on the main street, it's pretty impressive. The actual units are even coming, the cupboards and everything are all inside. Like it really is almost Lego like in the way that they're stacking this building up. So I'm going to go up there next week and take a look at that. So certainly as to my understanding, that is still something that a municipality can do. If you wish to look at your zoning and examine whether or not that can be higher. And then the only other thing that the province has done, and that is, and this is not my area, so I would defer to Arnie, is I know that they've changed the building code to make it easier for instance, timber frame construction to go higher and whatnot. So, but Arnie would have to speak to you about that.
That's good. Any further questions? Well, we want to thank you two very much, and it's a good information session. I'd like to see it recorded in our minutes that you were here. And I'll ask for a motion from council to receive the report for information. Someone move that, please. Councillor Myers, seconder. Councillor Choi, discussion. All in favor that the report be received for information? Carried. Thank you very much. You're now in our official abstract now. Okay. Drive safe, guys. We'll see you. Council, there is a closed session topic that it's important that we discuss, and to accommodate Julie Gagnon, who is very graciously assisting Southwest Middlesex on a personnel matter. Julie is the CAO clerk of the County of Elgin. She's sitting at the back. She'll be joining us soon at this chair beside me here. And Julie, we look forward to that. In addition, Julie has been appointed by Kendra as the CAO clerk will be appointed as the clerk for this meeting. It will include council, and Julie will be participants in this meeting. And yes, anything else, Kendra? We can. You bet. Okay, we'll do that right now. It's on. It's right in front of me here. So we will accept the motion to go into closed session. Councillor McGill, seconder. Councillor McCollum. All in favor? Carried. And Julie, you find your way